And when they don't have a man that they have to answer to, they develop an ego that says, I don't have to answer to nobody. See, black men, we got to understand something. This respect that our young brothers are showing our sisters and us and everybody else in the neighborhood is a direct result of the fact that they have come to learn that most of us as their elders are scared as hell of them. Yeah. And we will not be able to get their respect as long as we fear them. And as we organize to take back the street, we have to recognize two things. Number one, you can't pull them off the corner unless you can put them somewhere more productive. Right. We got to have services and resources. Telling people that what they're doing is wrong ain't going to get it done. When the American Social Order wanted the Italians to stop selling dope and liquor, they gave them the police department. When they wanted the Irish to stop selling dope and liquor, they gave them the fire department. When they wanted the poor Jews to stop hustling dope and rackets, they gave them the civil service jobs downtown. They got them out of the criminal element by employing them. Guess what? We will get our black men out of the criminal element also by employing them. You cannot separate violence from the economic reality in which it is embedded. We keep on trying to do that. We keep talking about fighting against the prisons, which we must. But guess what? If we're not talking about jobs in the same vein, then you won't be able to reduce the numbers. Because most crimes are economically motivated, directly or indirectly. I go into a Chinese store. Brother bumps me the wrong way. He gives me a stare. I pull out my gun and I kill him. You read it in the newspaper. You say, why did he shoot him? He didn't do nothing to him. You don't understand the background factor. Nobody told you I just got laid off of a job I've been working for 20 years. Nobody told you that I got 5 children that I'm raising, and I don't know how I'm going to keep a roof over their head having lost my job. It was stress that killed that man. It was the lack of opportunity that killed that man. If we're not going to deal with economic empowerment, you cannot deal with mass incarceration. And why are they locking up black men so significantly? And why are black women the fastest growing prison component right now? Yeah. One thing you got to know about slavery. When slavery ended, they had no place where black people were needed. The white people formed unions to keep you from getting jobs because you were more talented than they were. So they created unions to keep you out, and if you notice, the union still serves to keep you out. So automatically black people had to become what? Vagrants. Stealing, doing whatever they could, not because they were thieves, but they had families to take care of, and the social order didn't pave a way for them. 3 things the criminal justice system did at the end of slavery to give birth partly to what you see right now. Number 1, they upgraded petty offenses into major crimes. Petty offenses into major crimes. Number 2, they focused on crimes that were racially classified. In other words, crime is a function of not somebody breaking the law, but who you gonna focus on is breaking the law. White men break the law all the time, but the government chooses not to focus. So they find the things that we do, and they simply put a magnifying glass on it. Let me give you an example. Bill Clinton, who was your first black president. That's what y'all said. That's not coming. Okay? And by the way, he has been inducted by Negroes in Arkansas into the Arkansas Black Hall of Fame. They have a white man in a black Hall of Fame. You will never catch a black person in the Jewish Hall of Fame. You will never catch an Arab in an East Indian Hall of Fame. That is how sick we are, wanting to be loved by everybody. That's called low racial self-esteem. Call it what it is. So anyway, when Bill Clinton introduced mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent drug-related crime, that changed the whole face of crime. Changed the whole face of crime for the first time. You could get a minimum sentence and you didn't hurt nobody. You didn't touch a soul. 3 strikes and you out, that was major. If we wanted to turn the prisons all white, all we got to do is focus on white crime. For example, people who don't pay their taxes, white crime. For example, drunk driving. Do you know you could turn the prison white tomorrow if drunk driving automatically came with a mandatory minimum sentence? Because more than 75% of all people cited for driving drunk are white males. But they don't give that a mandatory minimum sentence because the focus is on removing black men from the social order. Right now, President Obama and Bush before him signed these laws called temporary visitation passes that Mexicans can get and other illegal immigrants can get if they can prove that they can find jobs for periods of 2 years. You're still an illegal immigrant, but you're legal though. Now see that? Why is this happening when half the black men in Baltimore are unemployed? How did you find space for Mexicans to sneak over and get a job when half the black men in New York City are unemployed? You know why? Because the corporations who rule the government, because the government is a corporation, they relaxed the laws to let the illegal immigrants in. Why? Because it maximizes profits. Listen to me. The reason why you have 4 to 6 million undocumented illegal immigrants, it is the United States government's attempt to do what? Keep the corporations from selling the businesses and sending them to second and third world nations. Are y'all following me? If you pick up your corporation and send it to Pakistan somewhere, you'll be able to maximize profit because you only have to pay the worker $1 a day. So the government said we can't afford to be losing all these businesses to second and third world nations. So what are we going to do to keep them? Let them employ the illegal immigrants for $1 a day. And that's why they're keeping the corporations in America. In the meanwhile, what are black men supposed to do? Go to jail. See, we're no longer needed in the economic order. We were brought here to serve manual labor. They have the Mexican. They no longer need the Negro. So there's only one place for you, and that's the prison. This is by design. And although we want our young people to stay in high school and get a diploma, if we don't have an economic reality for them after high school, what good was it? What good was it? This is what the children are asking on the street. Stay in high school for what? When I'm done, what do you got waiting for me? And then they keep the jobs out of the black community to do what? Influence all the black children to sign up for JROTC. I am not a fan of that nonsense. I was forced in it because I went to a military high school. But I refused to go to the military after that. That's for sure. Try not to influence your children to go into the service. This is being done by design. Cut off all opportunities of employment to black youth so they'll be forced to pick up a rifle for the American social order. And then they're hustling our kids by telling them they're going to get a GI Bill and we're going to pay your way to college. But what they're not telling your child is although we're going to give you some money for college, if we need your service while you're in school, you're going to have to withdraw because we need you in Afghanistan for 2 years. And so you go to Afghanistan for 2 years and you come back and now you're 21 years old and you re-enroll in school and you start getting your study on. Guess what? Call you up again. We need you in Kuwait for 2 years. So you come back, now you're 23 and you're studying again. Guess what? We got a problem in Somalia, a new terrorist. We need you back for 2 years. So what happens is they keep stopping and starting your education. You never finish. It's by design. No Child Left Behind. Y'all remember that law? The No Child Left Behind was nothing but a military recruitment law in disguise. The No Child Left Behind Act required any school district who wanted NCLB funds must allow the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Coast Guard, and Air Force access to pupil records beginning in the 8th grade. And if you did not allow the recruiters to intermingle with the high school students, your money would be cut. It was only about filling up the service. Right now, any of the branches of the service have access to your student records. There's nothing you can do about it because it is law. They look at 8th grade boys and they look at what their father did and they look at what their grandfather did. And they said, well, his father been in jail twice, his grandfather was murdered. He's a perfect candidate for the military because he ain't got much to live for anyway. This is what they do. They prey on the children who don't look like they're going to make nothing out of their life. And what they do is they take them and then they make them glamorize fighting for America like that's any different than fighting on the street corner and killing a brother. And so when I go into the high schools, I see our young brothers and sisters all dressed up with their ROTC uniforms as proud as they can be. And it ain't their fault. We signed them up. Well, he needed some discipline. So why in the hell didn't you teach it? You mean to tell me you need the Army to teach your son how to act? You need your Army to give your son some self-respect? You need the Marine Corps to tell him to hold the door open for a lady? We got that bad that we want the white man to do everything. Just like black history. Everybody fighting for black history in the schools. I beg to differ. I don't want no white woman teaching my daughters about her ancestors. That's my job. What the hell do I want a Jewish woman teaching my daughter about Marcus Garvey for? What the hell do I want some Irish history teacher teaching my nephews about Malcolm X? If you give those people control over your child's history, if you let them interpret the child's history, whoever controls your understanding of the past can dictate the future. We should be teaching history ourselves. You got a church on every other corner. Why in the hell can't they learn who they are in there? You got a church on every other corner. Why isn't there a math recovery program, a reading recovery program, a math recovery program, a writing recovery program? Why don't we hold the religious institutions accountable? I don't have a problem with none of the religions. I'm only looking for how you use it. If you're using your Islam to help, I have no problem. If you're using your Christianity to help, I have no problem. But if you're using it so you can set yourself apart and look special, I got a problem with that. See, black people talk about integrating, but the only people you're interested in integrating with is people who don't look like you. You are not interested in integrating with other black people.
That's right.
You ever be in the supermarket, stand in line, you get too close to a black person, they go to another line. The last thing they want to do is touch you. You move, you get a house in the suburbs. We always talk about how white people move off the block once the second black family get on the block. Hell, you moved out once you saw one other black family because you wanted to be the only one on the block. How are you going to integrate with other people when you don't integrate with yourself? And we fail to recognize that historically, no people has ever accepted another people if they felt that they were below them. That's right. No law can do this for you. No march can do this. No rally. No black president can do this. No executive order. No black politician, no church, no act of God. You must do this for yourself. If it is to be done for black people, it is to be done by black people. Now some of you say, well, hold on there, Brother Umar. I'm in an organization and we got some progressive white people. We have some liberal Europeans. I've been working with these white people for 20 years. I haven't seen them do a black person bad yet. Whenever we need them in the schools, they're there. Whenever somebody's killed in the neighborhood, they're there. So I don't believe in this whole thing that it can only be black people in the organization. When that event is over, do those white people live in your neighborhood? Or do they go back and live with all the racist white people? There's no difference between a liberal and a conservative. The only difference is a conservative is bold enough to tell you he wants nothing to do with you. And the liberal wants you to think they like you because they have an agenda. See, I've learned that a lot of these good white people in your organizations are writing grants.
That's right.
And getting paid for helping you, and you don't even know about it.
That's right.
Good white people. Next time you see a Negro talking about something, he got a white best friend, you talking to a fool. And he said, well, wait a minute. There got to be some exceptions to the rule. I'm not going to say it's not. I haven't found any, but I'm not going to say it's not. But I want you to understand this. You have to raise your political IQ. We are not up against a bunch of individuals. We are up against a system in which all white people participate. You got to grasp that. They all participate in the upkeep of the system. If you don't believe me, find me any white person alive today Find me any white person who has ever lived at any point in history who was willing to give up their white privilege card to be treated equal with blacks.
That's right.
The liberal is helping you because they believe you can't fix it yourself. The liberal is fighting for you because they think you lack the intelligence to do it yourself. The liberal gave you the Urban League and the NAACP because they thought you needed paternalism and maternalism, because left to your own wits, you would fail your own struggle. The white liberal is no different than the conservative. Please wake up. See, we like to put white people in groups. We got good white people, not so good white people, sometimes good white people, Christian white people, and y'all go crazy over them. White people don't put black people in groups. They just have one, black. None of that nonsense. None of that. White supremacy, so simple, but we miss it. We are in charge, and we're going to do anything we can to stay there. See, one thing that differs from African theosophy and white theosophy is we don't believe that the ends justify means. For us, it's certain things we just don't do. We're not going to blow up a whole building full of white folk to get at one of them. That's not within the African ethos. Our ethics doesn't tolerate that. If a white child is hungry on the street starving, we're going to feed them because that's who we are. But don't confuse who you are with what other people are. They don't have that kind of ethos. When you study white military thought, they'll tell you in a minute, whatever got to be done. In order to achieve the goal, you do it and be satisfied that it was done. This is what they are about. You got to recognize something, that you're dealing with a certain type of a human being if they are human. You're dealing with a certain type of one. And if you don't stop looking at them through the way you look at yourself, they're going to run right past you, because white people are masters of military science. They have perfected the art of gaining black confidence. One white person can come in here, give a good rap, and half of you will be believing in them. That's right. That's right. And we have a natural magnet for white people participation in black movement anyway, because of our Willie Lynch chip. And whenever a white person comes around, you might not even see him, but your radar start going off. Beep, 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 beep. This is what we do. Tell the truth. Absolutely, we must change it. So the black boy miseducated, then the black boy psychiatrically medicated, then the black boy juvenile incarcerated, then he's psychologically frustrated, alienated, he's on the street corner, pissed off at the black community, pissed off at his mom and pop, because y'all told me all I had to do was go to school, do my work, and life would be well. Well, guess what, Mom? I don't even have a left eye no more. Cops shot it out. You never told me about that. And we don't teach our children about racism because we think it's going to make them hate white people. If you don't teach them about racism and they got to learn it on their own, they will hate white people. That's what I'm dealing with in the schools. Black boys being expelled for telling these white women, if you say it again, I'm going to slap you in your damn face. And then the white woman goes to the principal and says she never said it. And then when a black boy goes to his classmates, because when you expel a child, and y'all need to know this, if your child is ever brought up for expulsion, first of all, you have a mandatory right to due process. You must appear before the local school board, and you have a right to challenge. And when you challenge, you have a right to submit evidence, and you can also subpoena witnesses. You can do this as parents. So you can have your children's friends in the classroom come in and say what they saw. The problem is other black parents aren't going to let their children defend yours, because we love to have good relationships with white people. I've seen children expelled when they could have been exonerated by one child's testimony, but the parents said, I don't want my kid caught up in that. But guess what? Had it been a white child who was up for expulsion, that black parent would have sent their child to that school board hearing in their Sunday best to save Johnny and Sarah. See, before we can change any other problem we have to change ourselves. See, before you can have an economic revolution, cultural or otherwise, you first have to have a psychological revolution. If black people don't fundamentally change the way we think, feel, believe, and act, nothing else will change with it. See, our energy pollutes everything that we do. And that's why I say we have to do what? Raise a whole new generation of black children. 25 years of African education and socialization the right way. And until you build those schools, more of your children are going to drop out. Until you build those schools, more black men are going to go to jail. Until you build those schools, more black boys are going to go the way of homosexuality. And where did that demon come from? The homosexual movement is nothing more than another eugenic strategy. Just like you got prison, eugenics. Just like you got abortion, eugenics. Black on black homicide, eugenics. Chemical addiction, eugenics. Homosexuality, eugenics. What do all these strategies have in common? They are all designed to kill the life of the black. Homosexuality is no different. If I'm going to spend the rest of my life with another man, where do children come from? If the lady going to spend the rest of her life with another lady, where do the children come from? Better yet, if every black person in America chose homosexuality and lesbianism today, in 100 years, there won't be no more black people in America. This is about extermination of the race. I'm not telling you to go and kill and chastise anybody who's homosexual, because we all know something. Because of the sicknesses in our community, and that's just one more of them. So the last thing we need to do is try to go and do harm to someone, prevent them from earning a decent living, prevent them from feeding themselves or keeping a roof over their head. We ain't talking about that. Those are called human rights. Everybody got a right to human rights. But marriage is a family right. And that's a privilege. And you don't get that unless you're getting married between a man and a woman. That's the only system of marriage that I'm ever going to condone. Right now, the president of Ghana, the president of Liberia, who's the first black female president, and the president of Uganda are in hot water with President Obama. The sister from Liberia stood up and said, in my country, marriage is between a man and a woman. She said, we African, we've been doing that for millions of years, there's nothing to talk about. Obama called her up. He said, you're going to retract that statement. He said, you're going to retract it, and if you don't, guess what? Your International Monetary Fund money is getting canceled. Your World Bank loans is getting canceled. Your USA grant is getting... Who the hell are you to go to the oldest people on earth and tell them that they have to accept a new type of marriage? Who the hell are you to go to Uganda? Uganda is in the cradle of civilization. That's the Nile Valley tract. You're going to the first people God put on earth, telling them that they have to condone man and woman marriage. This is what Obama doing. And he loves doing it. Why did he give us a homosexual Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan? Why did he give us a home? And by the way, Arnie Duncan, y'all know what he did, right? I'll be in Chicago in a couple of weeks with Dr. Njufu for the Black Male Conference on Educating Black Boys on Malcolm's Earth Day, Saturday, May 19th. BlackStarProject.org, for those of y'all who want to check that out. My ADHD just kicked in. Okay, the gay white man. Okay. This man in Chicago, I don't know if y'all know this. In Chicago, the homosexual and lesbian students have their own state-of-the-art high school. Did y'all know that? You cannot go in that school if you don't practice alternative relationships. Now, black men, I know what you're saying. You saying we've been fighting for all black male public schools for years, since the 70s. And they've been telling us we can't have an all black male school. We can't have an all black female school. But look what they turn around and do. And give the gay children their own school. New York is working on a gay high school too. This is what's going on. And you know what they said the reason was? Because they needed to be protected from the other children. Who the hell need to be more protected from these white-ass teachers than black boys? If it's about protection, we should have been the first ones with a school. Absolutely ridiculous. And then the teachers are the advisors to the homosexual student groups. And the student groups are going around recruiting. I got lesbian gangs in Philadelphia who go into the bathroom when the bells ring, and guess what they do? They kick open the stalls and fondle the girls while they're sitting down on the toilets, recruiting them, and they don't get expelled. But if that girl make a homosexual joke, She's thrown out. White kid called a black kid an N-word, not expelled. Black kid called a white kid a homosexual word, he's gone. If you haven't paid attention, homosexual rights have totally taken over black civil rights. And then you got people telling us you're supposed to support them because you're a minority too. And you falling for that. Well, we was a minority. So if we was a minority, we had our civil struggle. Why we ain't supposed? First of all, who you are ain't got nothing to do with who you choose to have sex with. That's two totally different things. This is a state of being. Homosexuality is a state of acting. It's two different things. Don't you dare confuse that. Where was the gay people when we was getting water hoses? Where was the gay people when dogs was biting the breasts off black men, black women? Where was the gay people when our children had to march in front of Dr. King and them so the people can see how they was treating? Where were they then? You might have had one, you might have had two, but the gay people did the same thing the Jews did. They did the same thing the Hispanics did. Same thing the Mexicans, the East Indians, and the Arabs did. They stood on the damn sideline. Watch us do all the hard work, and as soon as the Civil Rights Bill was signed, guess what? All the minorities came out to get something for it. And you know what? Part of that is our fault because we asked them to come with us. See, we don't just want to stand up for black people. We want to stand up for everybody. Failing to recognize that these other people you're standing up for don't like you no more than a white man does. And this Hispanic thing, I'm getting sick and tired of it. Reading the newspaper. The Hispanics are about to take over. They're the fastest growing group. But what the hell is a Hispanic? Hispanic ain't nothing but a black person speaking Spanish. You don't want to be black. Thank you. Puerto Ricans, Cubans, you just as black as the rest of us. No bit of difference. Your ancestors came over on that ship just like mine. But because it ain't popular to be African no more, everybody looking for a new label. Biracial, multiracial, quadracial. The census confusing Negroes, making you think white people put you in groups. Tiger Woods hate himself so much he came up with his own label. Cablinasian. I am Caucasian, black, Indian, and Asian. But when you went in court and that poor white woman broke your damn pockets, you was all Negro then. And then they put you in the front of Cosmopolitan magazine the day after she got a settlement. Did y'all see him? He had no shirt on, his pants was sagging, and his hat was on backwards. That's what you get for trying not to fit with the rest of us. Kobe Bryant, white wife, she just left him. 90 million in all 3 mansions. Russell Simmons, the Chinese lady, Kimura, she broke his pockets, and he ran to another white woman. Michael Jordan about to marry a white woman. I think they have a son or about to have a son. You're going to see a white Michael Jordan. Lord have mercy. Sometimes I dream that he is me. See? And this is what we do. And then the black men say, well, I can't help who I fall in love with. That's what I'm hearing. I can't help who I fall in love with. Why can't you? You can help who you fall in love with. You choose to fall in love with her. And then you say you don't want to date a black woman because she's a gold digger. Well, guess what? I don't know no black woman in America who got a $90 million cash payout. I don't know no black woman who got 3 mansions. Anybody have been divorced and got 3 mansions when you got the damn divorce? Nobody getting that but them. White women got a strategy. First they try to get the Anglo-Saxon rich white men. But the thing with rich white men, they tend to only marry women who already got money. Which means what? They have to go to the black man. First generation money. And we so happy to rock around with a white woman. And I don't understand it because once she turned 50 years old. I swear you would think she turned into a damn turkey. She got 3 chins, face falling off like it's melting. Can't cook, no flavor in the food whatsoever. And then soon when they get 50, you know what he want to do? He want to start dating the sisters on the side. Married to a white woman, dating the sisters on the side for the cookies and for the cooking, and you know what the cookies is. You see? And I'm saying to myself, what did you think she was going to look like when she turned 50? Because they ain't got no collagen, they ain't got no melanin, they stuff don't hang like a sister. Sister look like she 40 at 70, look like she 20 at 50. They look like they 100 at 40. She married at 4. Is your sister single? Hell no! You better go get Purdue turkey, mother.
Come on, brother.
A few more things, y'all. When we're done here, for the parents in particular, I want you to make sure you get my business card, so in the future, if any of you have an issue with your child centered around special ed, ADHD, psychiatric med exposure, you can send me an email and I'll tell you how to deal with the situation. Schools are breaking the laws on a daily basis, violating our children's rights. If your child is in special ed, some children do need it. We do have some autistic children. We do have some severely and profoundly mentally retarded children. I'm not talking about mild mental retardation. Because mild mental retardation ain't nothing but a slow learner. That's right, bro. Okay, that's all that is. Right. But if you got a child with a real problem, that's something you made up so you can get a check. Because see, you want to cash in too. I want him with a learning disability so I can get a check. I want him retarded so I can get a crazy check. I had a one boy one time, he came to me, this was at an African Center charter school. I'm giving him an IQ test, he's deliberately getting items wrong that a kindergartner can get right, and I know nothing wrong with him. So I'm looking at this like, why you get everything wrong on purpose? I didn't know the answer. I go to the special ed coordinator, I said, what's wrong with this boy? He think he fooling me, but he getting everything wrong. She said, oh, I didn't tell you about him yet. Every time it's time for a reevaluation, his mother tells him to play retarded. Why? Because the mentally retarded kids get the highest SSI money. You see? So they tell the kids to act stupid so they can get that check. What they fail to realize, though, he didn't act stupid so long that he becomes stupid. And you stuck with that kind of situation. Don't you ever sell your child future down the drain for $600, $700, $800, $900. It ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. And in speaking of hustling children, I don't know if you noticed, they are giving a lot of our foster children and adoptive children to same-sex white couples all around the country. Y'all see them? I was on an airplane with one, 2 white men with a baby of color. Okay, I couldn't tell if the baby was black, Catholic, Asian, I couldn't tell. The baby was... And these 2 white men were so proud that they had this little baby in color. Baby wanted to throw up. They standing up, walking up and down the airplane so everybody can see this is our child. What you gonna teach that baby about dating and romance? You wanna see no man tonguing no other man in front of that kid? Hey, come on now. This is about cultural imperialism. Trying to force your demonistic ways on somebody else. I know you got a history of that because in Greece and Rome, that's all y'all did. Julius Caesar, Napoleon, Alexander the Great, this is what y'all did. Socrates, Aristotle, Epictetus, the philosophers, y'all was into that stuff. The Roman Catholic Church was based on that stuff. That the woman is no good, so we don't touch her. That's totally contrary to the African way because we believe that the woman is the manifestation of the Most High. So it's a totally different reality. That's why we got to go back to being who we supposed to be, not what other people want us to be. We have to become unapologetically African. It's essential that we do that. Listen to me about college. Do not send your child to college unless they meet 2 criteria. Number 1, they want to become something that requires a college education. Number 2, you believe as their mother and father that they have the commitment and discipline to finish. Too many parents and children are going into loan debt. Loan debt. Loan debt because we sending children to college who you know ain't gonna finish. If you mean to tell me that you had to roll him out the bed every day to get to class at 8, living with you, what the hell he gonna do at Syracuse University when it's time for the 8 o'clock math class? Are y'all following me? If he cut class every day after lunch, what the hell you doing sending him to Florida State on $25,000 a year? And then get mad at him when he come back and say, Mom, I just don't think college is for me. And now you stuck with a loan. The only children who should be going to college are those who want to be something that requires an education on that level to get it. Some professions are legally regulated. I'm a psychologist that's legally regulated. You got to get a license or a certification, and you only get that with a master's or a doctorate. If you want to be an engineer, a lawyer, an educator, those are legally regulated. But if you want to be a business owner or a farmer, That's not legally regulated. You can go and farm. You got to follow the regulations of farming, but you don't necessarily have to have been trained in college to be a farmer. So we have to talk to our children and see what it is they really want to be, because too many black children are going to college and they're coming back home with nothing but debt, no degree. Are y'all following me on that? What's wrong with trade school? What's wrong with being a plumber? What's wrong with being a carpenter? What's wrong with being an auto mechanic? What's wrong with being an electrician? They make just as much money as we do. I got a friend of mine who's a carpenter. He makes way more money than I do, and he's been working for himself since he was 21. It only took him 2 years to get that piece of paper. Our children got options, and we need to share those options with our children. And although I'm not a fan of children taking time off after high school, if your child don't know what they want to do, let them take time off and think about it. Ain't no need to be thinking about it in college while you're paying for it. Think about it now. And if they are going to go to college, I recommend that they go outside of the city where they live. Okay? Some of us don't want to let our children grow up. I want my daughter at home with me so I can know what she's doing. I want my son at home. Sooner or later, they got to grow up. And let me tell you what I find, because I work with college students. When you over-shelter them children, you know what your daughters do when they go to college? They get bucked. Why? I'm telling you, because they never had no freedom. She wanted to go on a date. Nah, you can't date. You only 17. You don't go on no date till you get married. So she never had no freedom at home. So now she had a college with nothing but males. And guess what she doing? She ain't got no type of regulation, no discipline, no nothing, because you didn't teach her none of that. You can't hide these kids from the world. We do got to protect them, and we got to educate them. And we do want them to be celibate until marriage if they can. But the problem is you can't expect your child to be celibate until marriage, and you're letting them listen to music that promotes sexuality, watch movies that promote sexuality, hang around a peer group that don't do nothing but talk about sexuality. If the idea is not in the mind, the child won't manifest it. That's right. But I'm going to tell you this. That's right. If there's something that all girls need, it is an effective emotional attachment, if not to her father, to an older man. Because our teenage pregnancy is nothing more than our girls looking for love from a masculine man that they never got from their father completely. And so they ended up with babies. Come on, bro. If we want to cut down on teenage pregnancy, we got to put fathers in the lives of girls. And we got to put fathers in the lives of boys. And we got to put mothers in the lives of boys. I know a lot of men, we raise them boys by ourselves. We teach him to be a man. I love it. But he still needs some of that feminine energy. We have to see why or what he feels about his mother not necessarily being there. Because a lot of men harbor hatred towards their mother and they take it out on their significant other. Come on, brother. And then it comes out as domestic abuse, domestic violence. And to the sisters, domestic violence is a big problem in our community. When we talk about building services for our community, one service I'll tell you we need right now, we need a shelter for black women where they can go when they got to leave that house. And they got nowhere else to turn. Too many sisters are putting up with domestic violence because they ain't got nowhere to go. They can't go to their family because their family, they can't even trust them. They go with their mom, they go with their sister, they go with their cousin. Guess what? They telling the husband or the boyfriend where they stand. Y'all see what I'm saying? So we need a shelter for our sisters. We really need a shelter for our sisters. And for men, you got to recognize that you can also be a victim of domestic violence. We tend not to understand that. When a woman is threatening you, that's domestic violence. Slashing your tires, that's domestic violence. Okay? Threats on the telephone, standing outside your job. Requesting you on Facebook under 25 aliases, that's domestic damn violence. You got a woman with 25 different Facebook profiles, you better get the hell out that house quick! She crazy! We have to start adopting our own children. It is very important that we do that. Very important. Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakinen, scholar warrior up in New York, him and his wife adopted several. He's a very busy man. So I took a page out of his book. I said if he can find time to adopt a child, then we can all do that. You know, I'm probably going to have to adopt a son because I got 2 girls, and if I keep on going, I'm going to end up like Malcolm. So I'm going to have to adopt them. I'm jealous of y'all. Y'all came out with 2 boys on the twin. I'm real jealous of them. They got 2, not 1 boy. Lord gave him 2. Okay? June 16th in Philadelphia for the men. June 16th in Philadelphia. We're going to have a conference for black men in Philadelphia interested in taking that ride. It's a real quick ride from Baltimore to Philadelphia. Sister Pam Africa, Ramona Africa, good friends of mine. We're going to have a conference for black men to try to organize us locally and nationally to get some things done. I really would like... Gotcha.
Yeah, man, long.
I really would like... We gotta keep the protocol, We, really would like to have a relationship between the black men of Baltimore and the black men of Philadelphia. Yeah. The black men of Baltimore and the black men of Philadelphia. See, when we talk about Trayvon Martin, the reason why Zimmerman was arrested, I want to make sure you know this. It wasn't for justice. And it wasn't because of that man with the perm either. Okay? The reason Zimmerman was arrested is because Obama didn't want to suffer a backlash at the polls last week. So he had to be arrested to make sure it didn't shake up the voters' confidence. That's why Zimmerman is not likely to get a conviction before November. Because Obama want to make sure that however that case goes, it doesn't affect him. Not only Obama, but all the other black elected officials in the state of Florida. Are y'all following me? So let's not celebrate the Zimmerman thing. That was nothing but a military strategy during the political year. Election year, that's all it was. Now, the reason they took so long to arrest Zimmerman is because we didn't give them a reason to arrest them sooner. See, one thing we got to understand, and a lot of people like to criticize Dr. King, but Dr. King was a master strategist. Yes. What would Dr. King have done had he been living? I'm going to tell you, there would have been about 1 million black people in Florida. Some of us would have been responsible for cutting off the roads that go from the city to the airport so nobody flies out that day. Some of us would have been responsible for blocking the roads that go to the supermarket and the malls so nobody make no money that day. Some of us would have been responsible for disrupting the roads that lead from the ghetto to the suburbs so white people couldn't go home at night that day. Are y'all following me? If you want to get the attention of white people, you got to disrupt their economic order, inconvenience their daily routine, and mess with their way of life. If that had happened, we would have got an arrest overnight. But all we did was have a press conference, calling bourgeoisie black leaders to talk for us. Okay? We did a photo op and we went home. White people didn't have a reason to arrest Zimmerman. And unfortunately, this Zimmerman case is going to be a major symbol for the white vigilanteism to come against black people. Now, I don't like to give bad news, but I'm a political analyst. If you haven't heard of the Stand Your Ground law, I suggest you start researching it. The Stand Your Ground law is this new thing that the southern states came up with, Texas and Florida started it, that says you can be justified in taking another person's life if you feel. Are y'all with me now? If you feel that your life was in jeopardy. You don't have to prove that they had a weapon. You don't have to prove that they was even thinking about hurting you. All you have to do is believe your life was in jeopardy. The Stand Your Ground law is the first step on the way back to Jim Crow. The Stand Your Ground law is the first step on the way back to the black codes. The Stand Your Ground law is the first step to deputizing every white person in America with the political power to take a black life. If the black man is considered public enemy number one in America, what white person couldn't claim that they were evoking the Stand Your Ground law when they walking down the street at night and we coming towards them? What white teacher can't say she shot a black student because she was going to her car and it was dark outside after school? He coming from basketball practice out the gym with a hoodie on. And she didn't know that that was a student and she shot and killed him. My point is the Stand Your Ground law has simply made open season on all black men. Oh, and this Trayvon Martin case is going to be critical for us because the outcome sets the tone. And if we got any lawyers in here, y'all know this, case law. That becomes the first major case in the Stand Your Ground. If he walks, do you know what that does? That gives the incentive to all white men that you have a right to shoot and kill black men because you believe they pose a threat. Well, guess what? White supremacy is based on the belief that black men pose a threat. Couple more points. illusion of inclusion. If we don't stop falling for political tricksters who are making us think that we have made more progress in the last 40 years than we made the previous 100, we won't go anywhere. People who don't think they have a reason to do anything won't do it. When you talk about progress, I ask you, what is your definition? My definition of progress is not how many black people got elected to office. It's not how many black people who have made it to Hollywood. It's not how many black people who are making movies. It's not how many black people who got Cadillac trucks. That's not my definition of progress. My definition of progress is to what extent as a people have we been able to create a self-sustaining, independent existence. To what extent do we own? When slavery ended in 1865, when they passed the 13th Amendment, we were approximately 12 to 17% of the population. And we own 1/2 of the wealth of America. That was 145 years ago. Today in 2012, with LeBron James, Oprah Winfrey, Bill Cosby, and the rest of them, you still are only 12 to 15% of the population, and you still control less than 1/2 of 1% of all the wealth in America. So for my people who believe in this progress, I ask you to prove it to me. A black man's life is no more safer today than it was 145 years ago. No safer. They lynching us with miseducation. They lynching us with economic castration. They lynching us with homosexualization. They lynching us with effeminization. I'm walking through some of my schools and some of my 4th and 5th grade boys are already getting the swagger. And y'all know what the swagger is. I was giving a lecture at one of America's oldest black colleges up in Pennsylvania, and 4 cross-dressed black men walked in there. Pocketbooks, high heel, skirt, they were students. What would you do if your son came home and said, Dad, I like being at Coppin, I like being at Morgan, and I don't know what their laws are in terms of dress. I'm just using them as an example. I like going to an HBCU, but guess what I found out today, Dad? Guess who my roommate is? Raheem the transvestite. He dresses like a woman. He's getting his body changed over. I went to the residential life office and said, can I have a heterosexual black roommate? And they said, no, it's a civil rights violation if they grant my request because I'm discriminating against my roommate's sexual preference. This is what we're going through. Which is why, although I support our HBCUs, I understand that they were created at a certain time for a certain purpose. We need to build new colleges. That's right. We need modern black colleges and universities. We need colleges that don't teach black people to fit, but teach them to own and control. See, as I work to build the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Pan-African Independence Academy for our boys and for our girls, there's going to be 6 sciences that we're going to teach. We're going to teach the 5 majors because you have no choice. Y'all know what the 5 majors is: math, science, history, English, and social studies, which is now case studies. We're going to teach military science. We're going to teach political science. We're going to teach agricultural and agronomical science. If the Chinese store shut down, how would you eat? If they stopped giving you those 3 wings with the 25-cent soda and the Lucy, your ass would starve. Okay? The science of black family development and maintenance, spiritual and astrological science, the science of economic finance and international competition. That's what the Asians are getting. Asian kids don't go to school to learn how to work for white people. East Indian children don't go to school to learn how to work for white people. Our children go to school to learn how to serve others, not themselves. It's time for us to throw that yoke up off of our backs. Marcus Garvey said that God never intended us to be a race without a country, and we are not going to abuse God's confidence in us as men. When he was asked whether he was a Jamaican or an African, he said, I will never ever give up a continent for an island. Marcus Garvey said that without confidence in yourself, you are twice defeated in the race of life, but with confidence you have won even before you have started. Marcus Garvey said the black man is in the position he's in not because he's black, but because he hasn't organized his power. He said a strong black man is strong everywhere he goes. And so what we must do, black men, is we must go back to being what we used to be so that our women and our elders and our children can look up to us and say, damn, thank God that I'm an African. Ashe.
applause. Cotton City, round of applause. Yeah. All right. How many people enjoying themselves today? Good food, Tam good food, right? Dr. Umar, Watoto from the now.
LGE, how can I explain it? We're rapping day by day with it to have you all jumping, shouting, saying it. I was for life, just forgiving, that's essential. The letter ego, that's just that simple. I could just stop it like another thing that's physical and mental. The soul's intermental in its hemisphere. Don't drive out others' spirit like cause like I'm part of the equation. And see my God, that's some explain. But I said, you haven't know that you don't watch a video. That's just trying to keep a thing you stop and wanna know. The beat is playing who was hitting hard without a doubt. Do you even know what them see is really talking about? It's when I first started to alter into the T. That's when you start to figure out, ain't no mystery. No trickery they try to use to make you win it. Watch the fun analysis, ducking you to quit it. We said I all forgot this where we get our spirit in. We never took to us cause now we preaching it. Fill out your paper, LGE, come on, it's time to list. Come on, people, get your membership.
Get on without GE. Get on without GE. Get on without GE. Get on without GE. Come and ride with me. Get on without GE. Get on without GE. Get on without GE. Get down with LGE. Come and ride with me. Now for the ladies, LGE needs some explaining cause there's no more disrespecting my girl. It's time to end it. It's the loneliest route. I can only dream of standing tall. We trying to tell the whole world they want the me. I love it when the brother take the vow to get respect from me. It fills me up with lots of energy. We teaching lessons like this. What you want rap to be? Educating you raply. Have you ever had a time when you were feeling mad about your life? No matter what you do, it seems you're never going right. The time is done. What can I do to take this pain away? Turn up to Stevie, maybe Whitney. That's what say today. I'm feeling good about myself. I've been in constant prayer. With LGE, I take my car and lift it in the air. So many people in this game, they do it just for dough. And they be bucking that's skin and putting on a show. You say your soul, who's in control? The people sitting high. See LGE, and lift your fist up high. No silence, get in the midst, be raving in the count. Don't sell your soul, help the people out. Get on without GE. Yeah, you know me. Get on without GE. Yeah, you know me. Get on without GE. Yeah, you know me. Get down without GE. Come and ride with me. Get on without GE. Yeah, you know me. Get on without GE. Yeah, you know me. Get on without GE. Yeah, you know me. Get down without GE. Come and ride with me.
Get why the industry is no good for me and who they do it for. I told style we gonna teach you. Let the door is here. Time to stand up, community. Time to represent the LGE. LGE. Easiest 1, 2, 3. Help build the community. LGE. And you'll see maybe you and me. Yeah, LGE. Easiest 1, 2, 3. Help build the community. LGE. Can't you see maybe you and me, yeah.